Okay, so we have learned how to, using 3D Studio Max, create a box, how to edit the box, and how to modify the box. So now we're going to go back to our creation panel, standard primitives, and creation geometry standard primitives, and we're going to click on sphere. Okay, so the next object on this list is a sphere, and everything we just did to the box, we can also do the sphere. Okay, so if I come in here, I can change the color if I want. You can create edge mode or center mode. I'm just going to go with center. Sometimes if you just learn the defaults and work with the defaults, it makes it faster. The defaults don't always work, and when they don't, we can change those. But for here, this is fine. Keyboard entry, this allows me to tell it exactly where I want to put the, I can type in coordinates. Same as with the box. Give it the radius, create it, and it will put it exactly in the right size, the right shape, where I want it. Or you can work with the parameters. You can tell it the radius, the number of segments, and you have some other things here that you can control. You can control it as a hemisphere. So let me just put in, for now, let me just put in a sphere over here so you can see. I'm going to go top view and I'm going to create a sphere. And you see that it created it, because I created the center point, it created it below the horizon. So if I had a flat plane here, or for any reason, I would just have to lift this up, so it would be below, now be above that horizon line. Okay, so that is just a sphere straight up defaults. Now, if I come down here and I tell it I want to do a hemisphere, I just tell it how much of a hemisphere. And you see it's got the bottom chopped off right there. And that's what the hemisphere does. It starts to, I'm just going to go over here to the Modify tab and adjust that number so you can see the hemisphere number. That's what it does. It gives you a segment of an overall sphere, so you can control that. Okay. Then the next thing we can do with the sphere is do slice on, and if we put some numbers in there, it will create, oops. Okay, so I'll tell you what, I normally don't do it that way. Let me just put in a sphere and edit it, and then show you how to, oh, I did 100%, there we go, hemisphere, don't want to do it, okay. Slice on, and then when I tell it where to start and where to end, it will give me a shape. Bring that down. There we go. That looks like that. Okay. And so you can see when we zoom in here the difference between these different settings that you have for the sphere. I'm going to just make them all a really light color so you can see them. Okay, there we go. Alright, so I'm just going to click on the first one and go back to my Modify tab, and you can see my parameters. And the same as I did for the box, I can now do for the sphere. So if I decide I want to change the radius, I can scrub, or I can just come in here and type in a whole number. And it will make it that exact size. So I'm making a Pac-Man game over here. The number of segments it has, it's by default 32, which is enough for it to look mostly round. you can see what happens when I remove those. It starts to become more faceted. If I add more, it becomes rounder. Now, because the more segments you add, the bigger your file gets, and then ultimately the slower it will get to render later on when we start actually adding materials and lights and creating an animation. You want to always use the minimum necessary to do a good job. And I hate saying that, because in general I tell you guys you want to go above and beyond. In this industry, the people who are successful are those who never do the bare minimum. It's always the people who go above and beyond. But when it comes to memory in the system, you want to use as little of it as needed. Here I don't need 63 segments when, what is that, at 32. Oops. 36 seems to get the job done, maybe. Okay. And then I can, again, I can adjust the hemisphere, which is the wholeness of it. I can turn on slice and take a slice, right? The first number is the starting point. The second number is the end point. So I can create a segment or a wedge or a orange with a slice out of it, or over here a hemisphere with a slice out of it. And that allows me to make changes to that sphere, same way as I did with the box. And I can add modifiers. Oops. I didn't mean to add that one. Sometimes this mouse for this computer has a mind of its own. Let's do taper. I'll show you what that one does. And I add a taper, and you see what it's doing, creating a teardrop shape, pear shape. It's really beautiful. That's pretty. Kind of looks like an onion. And then you'll adjust the amount, and then you can adjust also on this, you can adjust the curve. That's a little more onion-like, right, to round it out. And then you can control the axis if you want to taper it in a different axis. And you can control where the effect is applied. And I'm going to tell you guys that the best way to learn what these things do is to get in there, set them up, and apply them, and just start changing the parameters to see how they have an impact on the shape. And then your brain will start to learn what they do. And then later on, when you know what you need, you'll know to go straight to it, and you'll know how to use it. This is very much an experiential learning program. You've got to just do it. You got to get in there and practice and play around with it. Now, don't go changing all kinds of variables that we haven't covered yet. I see students will get in trouble. They'll be working on something independently, and then they'll call me over and they'll say, it's not working. And I'll be like, I don't know what you did. So I don't know how to help tell you to undo it other than start over. And don't start messing with things that you don't know what they are. Wait until you've at least have an understanding of what they are. Don't randomly press keyboards or keys on the keyboard, because there are keyboard shortcuts that are used in this program, and they will change your parameters so much that you're gonna have to do a whole bunch of more work to undo them. So I tell people, don't press anything you don't know what it is in this program. Not yet, anyway. Okay, so I created this really cool shape, and so you see I can take a circle and turn it into an onion and start to create some interesting shapes. Now let's go back up here to taper and the arrow to the left of it, and you see I'm going to click on gizmo. What that's going to allow me to do is move the gizmo to get even more control. Okay, so I'm going to go in my top view here, and I'm going to move that gizmo up, and you can see. Now, while that's cool, I'll explain to you why you don't want to do that. It messes up your normals, I believe. You'll want to create two separate shapes and join them together if you want to do that. Okay, so you see I can move this gizmo, and it changes the impact on how these parameters are applied to that sphere. You can do it this way too. And you can also animate this, by the way. That's another really cool thing. This is all animatable. Okay. Okay, so that's taper. Okay, so I'm going to end this video here. And what I would recommend you do at this point is do all these things. Work with the box, change the box, add the bend modifier, work with the sphere, play with the taper, get comfortable with it, and then move on from there. Okay, stop here.